Captain Kim Dae-ho felt his stomach drop as another blast shook the massive battleship. Red warning lights flashed across the bridge while alarms screamed in the background. Through the thick glass windows, he could see his home planet Earth, covered in orange flames and black smoke. Giant alien ships hung in space like dark clouds, firing deadly beams down at cities below. The Dra'kari had arrived 3 days ago without any warning. Their ships were black as midnight and shaped like sharp daggers. Nobody knew where they came from or why they wanted to destroy humanity. They just started attacking everything in sight. "Captain, the last evacuation ships just jumped to safety." Lieutenant Park So-young called out from her computer station. Her voice shook slightly. "But sir, they're following us, all of them." Kim looked at the main screen showing space around them. Red dots filled the display like angry bees. Each dot was an enemy ship. He counted them quickly in his head. Over 1,000 Dra'kari warships were chasing his single battleship. The UES. Defiance was the pride of Earth's fleet. 5 years to build, packed with the best weapons and shields humanity could make. But even she couldn't fight 1,000 ships and win. Kim's hands gripped his chair tighter as he felt the weight of every soul on his ship. 800 crew members looked to him for answers he didn't have. "Engine room, what's our status?" he asked into his communicator. "Not good, Captain," came the tired voice of Chief Engineer Choi Hye-jin. "We took heavy damage during the first attack. Main engines are running at 60%. We've got hull breaches on decks 7 and 12. I need at least 6 hours to patch the worst damage." 6 hours they didn't have. Kim watched the enemy ships getting closer on the tactical display. Their weapons had longer range than human guns. Soon they would be close enough to destroy the Defiance completely. Commander Lee Min-ho stood beside the captain's chair, his face grim. "Sir, if we stay and fight, we'll be dead in 20 minutes. But if we run, we might draw them away from the evacuation fleet." That was the choice. Die here trying to defend what was left of Earth, or run into the unknown and hope the enemy would chase them instead of humanity's survivors. Kim closed his eyes for a moment, thinking of his wife and daughter who were hopefully safe on one of those evacuation ships. "All hands, this is the captain," he announced over the ship's speakers. "We're going to lead these monsters away from our people. It won't be easy, and I won't lie to you about our chances. But every minute we keep them busy is another minute for our families to get to safety." The bridge crew nodded. They all understood. This might be a one-way trip, but it was the right thing to do. "Navigation. Plot a course for the outer rim," Kim ordered. "Take us as far from the evacuation routes as possible." "Course plotted, sir," replied Shin Woo-jin from the navigation station. "But Captain, that's deep into Dra'kari space. We'll be completely alone out there." "Better alone than letting them catch our people," Kim replied. "Engage hyperspace engines, maximum burn." The Defiance shuddered as her damaged engines spun up to full power. Space twisted around them as they prepared to jump to hyperspace. Through the windows, Kim could see the enemy ships turning to follow them. Good. The plan was working. "Jump. Successful," announced Lee Min-ho as they emerged in an unknown star system. "We're in Dra'kari territory now, deep in it." The tactical screen lit up again as enemy ships began appearing around them. The aliens had followed them just as hoped, but now Kim realized the full scope of what they faced. The Dra'kari Empire was massive. This single star system had more enemy ships than Earth's entire fleet. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," Park So-young reported. "It's from the Dra'kari fleet commander." The main screen flickered, showing a tall alien with gray skin and 4 arms. Its voice came through the speakers like grinding metal. "Human vessel, you cannot run. Surrender now, and your death will be quick." Kim stood up from his chair and straightened his uniform. "Tell them we don't know the meaning of surrender." The alien's face showed something that might have been surprise. Clearly, they weren't used to defiance from their victims. As the transmission ended, Kim looked around at his crew. They were scared but determined. 800 humans against an entire empire. The odds were impossible, but they had already done the impossible by getting this far. The war for humanity's survival was just beginning, and the Defiance would write the first chapter. 3 months had passed since the Defiance fled from burning Earth. The ship looked nothing like the proud warship that once protected humanity's home. Scorch marks covered her hull, and makeshift repairs held together sections that should have been replaced in a proper shipyard. But she was still flying, still fighting, and that was all that mattered. Captain Kim Dae-ho walked through the corridors and saw the toll their guerrilla war had taken on his crew. Dark circles under tired eyes, uniforms patched and repatched, faces that had aged years in just months. But their spirits remained strong. They had learned to be ghosts in the vast darkness of space. The bridge buzzed with quiet activity as Chief Engineer Choi Hye-jin climbed up from the lower decks. Her uniform was stained with blue coolant and black grease, her hands dirty from another emergency repair. She wiped sweat from her forehead as she approached the captain. "We just finished destroying that mining station in the Zeph system," she reported, exhaustion clear in her voice. "Took out their main processing facility and 3 cargo ships full of rare metals. But Captain, we're running dangerously low on supplies. Our ammunition is down to 30%, and I'm running out of spare parts for repairs." Kim nodded grimly. Every victory came with a price they could barely afford to pay. The Defiance had no home base, no supply ships, no reinforcements. Everything they needed had to be stolen from the enemy or salvaged from destroyed alien vessels. Takiwasai. The navigation station, Shin Woo-jin, studied star charts on his glowing screen. His fingers traced possible routes through Dra'kari space, looking for their next target. The young officer had become an expert at finding ways to strike and escape before the enemy could respond. "Captain, I've been analyzing their patrol patterns," Shin said, pointing to his display. "There's a major fuel depot in the Keth sector. It supplies 12 different Dra'kari fleets. If we could destroy it, we'd cripple their operations in this entire region." The captain moved closer to examine the tactical information. The fuel depot was heavily defended, surrounded by automated defense platforms and protected by a full squadron of enemy warships. It would be their most dangerous mission yet. "What's the risk assessment?" Kim asked. "High, sir. Very high. They have 40 ships guarding the station, plus orbital weapons. We'd have maybe 10 minutes to get in, plant our charges and get out before their reinforcements arrive." Shin's voice was steady, but Kim could see the worry in his eyes. Kim looked around the bridge at his crew. They had attempted 17 impossible missions in the past 3 months. Each time, they had somehow managed to succeed and escape. But their luck couldn't last forever. "Do it," Kim decided without hesitation. "Plot the course. Every day we keep fighting is another day for our people to find safety somewhere in the galaxy." At the weapons station, Yang Su-min checked their remaining firepower. She had become a master at making every shot count, turning their limited ammunition into maximum damage. Her fingers danced across the weapon controls as she prepared for their next battle. "Captain, I've been monitoring Dra'kari communications," she reported. "Something interesting is happening. When we attack, their formations fall apart. They panic and scatter instead of fighting back effectively." Kim raised an eyebrow. "Explain." "They're not used to fighting an enemy that won't surrender," Yang continued. "Their whole empire is built on fear and intimidation. They attack, demand surrender, and usually get it. But we keep fighting back, and it's confusing them. Their commanders don't know how to respond to an opponent who refuses to give up. This was valuable intelligence. The Dra'kari Empire ruled through terror, making other species too afraid to resist. But the Defiance had shown that their mighty fleets could be hurt, could be outmaneuvered, could even be defeated by a smaller, more determined force." Communications Officer Na Ye-won looked up from her station with excitement. "Sir, I'm picking up chatter from their military networks. They're calling us the Ghost Ship. Apparently there are rumors spreading through their space about a human vessel that appears from nowhere, destroys their installations, and vanishes without a trace." Kim almost smiled. Good. Fear worked both ways. If the Dra'kari were starting to worry about when and where the Defiance would strike next, it meant their psychological warfare was working. Medical Officer Dr. Kang Se-bin emerged from the ship's medical bay, looking tired but determined. He had been working around the clock treating wounded crew members with limited supplies, performing miracles with basic equipment. "Captain, we've lost 12 people in the last month," he reported quietly. "But morale is still high. The crew, believes in what we're doing. They know we're buying time for humanity's survivors. As the Defiance prepared for another impossible mission, Kim realized they had become something more than just survivors. They were proof that humans would never give up, never surrender, never stop fighting for what was right, even alone in enemy space. Outnumbered 1,000 to 1, they kept striking back. The Dra'kari Empire was learning a hard lesson about humanity's stubborn refusal to accept defeat. 6 months had passed since the Defiance began her impossible war against the Dra'kari Empire. What started as one desperate human ship trying to buy time for Earth's survivors had grown into something no one could have predicted. The ripple effects of their defiance were spreading across the galaxy like wildfire. Communications Officer Na Yewan sat hunched over her workstation, multiple screens glowing around her, as alien signals flooded through space. Her translation programs worked day and night, turning enemy chatter into valuable intelligence. Dark circles under her eyes showed how little sleep she had gotten, but the excitement in her voice was unmistakable. "Captain Kim, you need to hear this," she called out, her fingers flying across her keyboard. "I'm intercepting emergency communications from Dra'kari command centers. The Zenth mining colonies in the Outer Rim have started fighting back. They destroyed 3 cargo ships and took over an entire asteroid mining facility." Kim moved closer to her station, reading the translated messages scrolling across her screen. The Zenth were a peaceful species that the Dra'kari had enslaved decades ago, forcing them to work in dangerous mines. They had never shown any resistance before. "There's more, sir," Na continued, her voice getting more excited. "The Hala shipyards are in full revolt. They've stopped building ships for the Dra'kari and are attacking their overseers. And listen to this message I intercepted from a Dra'kari admiral." She played an audio file through the bridge speakers. The alien voice sounded angry and frustrated. As the translation came through, "How did one human ship cause all this trouble? These slave species were quiet for years. Now they think they can fight us because some humans refuse to die." Around the bridge, crew members looked up from their stations with amazement. Their small acts of defiance had inspired entire civilizations to stand up against their oppressors. Species that had been beaten down and enslaved for generations were suddenly finding the courage to fight back. Medical Officer Dr. Kang Sibin climbed onto the bridge from the medical bay below. His white coat was stained with blood from treating wounded crew members, and his medical supplies were running dangerously low. But despite the hardships, his face showed pride and determination. "Captain, I just finished treating the injuries from our last raid," he reported. "We lost 2 more good people and 17 others are wounded. My medical supplies are almost gone, but you should hear what the crew is saying. They know they're not just fighting for survival anymore. They're fighting for every oppressed species in this galaxy." Kim nodded, feeling the weight of that responsibility. When they fled from Earth, their only goal was to lead the enemy away from humanity's evacuation ships. They never imagined they would become symbols of hope for countless other species suffering under Dra'kari rule. Commander Lee Min-ho stood at the central tactical display, studying intelligence reports that painted a picture of an empire in chaos. Red markers showed rebellion sites across 17 different star systems. The Dra'kari Empire, which had seemed unbreakable just months ago, was developing cracks. "Sir, look at these fleet movements," Lee said, pointing to the display. "The Dra'kari High Command is pulling ships from their border territories, desperately trying to put down these uprisings. They're moving 3 entire battle fleets to deal with the Zenth rebellion alone." This was exactly what the Defiance needed to hear. Every ship the Dra'kari sent to fight rebellions was one less ship hunting for the human battleship. But more importantly, it showed that their enemies' resources weren't unlimited. "They're spread thin," Lee continued. "For the first time in decades, the Dra'kari don't have enough ships to control all their territories. They're having to choose which rebellions to crush first." Lieutenant Park So-young looked up from her sensor station, her young face filled with wonder. "One ship," she whispered, almost unable to believe it. "We're just one ship and we're making an entire empire bleed." The truth of her words hit everyone on the bridge. The mighty Dra'kari Empire, which controlled hundreds of worlds and enslaved dozens of species, was being shaken to its core by the actions of 800 humans on a single damaged battleship. But Kim knew they were walking a dangerous line. Every day their war continued was another day the enemy learned more about their tactics. The Dra'kari were adapting, setting traps, trying new strategies to catch the elusive human ship. "Sir, there's something else," Nayawan said, her voice dropping to a more serious tone. "I'm picking up increased chatter about something called the final solution. The Dra'kari High Command is planning something big. They're talking about ending all rebellions once and for all." The bridge fell silent. Kim felt a chill run down his spine. The Dra'kari were cruel and ruthless, but they weren't stupid. If rebellions were spreading across their empire, they would eventually decide that the cost of controlling individual uprisings was too high. They might choose to destroy entire rebel worlds as examples to others. "How long do we have?" Kim asked. "Unknown, sir, but from what I can gather, they're already moving special weapons into position. Whatever they're planning, it's going to be devastating." Kim looked around at his crew, seeing the same realization in their eyes. They had lit a fire of rebellion across the galaxy, but now they had to make sure that fire didn't get snuffed out by Dra'kari brutality. The war was entering a new phase, and the stakes had never been higher. Their impossible mission was far from over. The Defiance drifted silently in the shadow of a dead star, her engines powered down to minimum levels. Captain Kim had chosen this hiding spot carefully. The massive burned-out star blocked most sensor scans, making it the perfect place for emergency repairs and planning their next move. The ship had taken heavy damage during their last raid on a Dra'kari weapons factory. Hull breaches on multiple decks, damaged weapon systems, and injured crew members filled the medical bay. Chief Engineer Choi Hye-jin worked around the clock with her repair teams, but they were running out of spare parts and hope. "Captain, sensors are picking up something strange," called out Lieutenant Park So-young from her station. Her voice carried a mix of confusion and wonder. "There are objects approaching our position, but they don't match any known ship designs in our database." Kim moved to the main view screen, expecting to see Dra'kari warships that had somehow tracked them down. Instead, he saw something that took his breath away. 5 ships emerged from the darkness like floating crystals, their surfaces gleaming within a light. They were beautiful beyond description, shaped like geometric dreams made real. "Sir, they're trying to communicate," reported Communications Officer Na Yewon. "But the signal is unlike anything I've ever seen. It's not radio waves or laser communications, it's something else entirely." The main screen flickered, and suddenly a figure appeared that made everyone on the bridge fall silent. The being was tall and graceful, with skin that seemed to be made of living starlight. Its eyes held the wisdom of ages, and when it spoke, its voice carried the weight of countless centuries. "Greetings, young ones of Earth," the being said, its words somehow reaching their minds directly. "I am Elder Mortai of the Ancient People. We have watched your small ship's brave journey with great interest." Chief Science Officer Hong Ji-woo nearly fell out of his chair with excitement. His hands shook as he grabbed his tablet, frantically taking notes. The Mortai were legends, being so old that most species considered them myths. Ancient texts spoke of a civilization that had mastered space travel when the galaxy was young, then mysteriously vanished from known space. "This is impossible," Hong whispered, his voice filled with awe. "The Mortai disappeared over 1,000 years ago. Everyone thought they were extinct." The elder seemed to smile, though its crystalline features made expressions difficult to read. "We did not perish, curious human. We simply chose to withdraw from the galaxy's affairs. We grew tired of watching civilizations rise and fall, of seeing species destroy themselves with war and hatred. So we retreated to the void between stars, content to observe from a distance." Captain Kim found his voice, though he still couldn't quite believe what was happening. "Why are you revealing yourselves to us now?" "Because in 10,000 years of watching, we have never seen such persistence from a supposedly inferior species," the elder replied. "Your empire called you weak. Your enemies dismissed you as primitive. Yet one small ship has managed to shake the foundations of the mighty Dra'kari Empire. This intrigues us greatly." Commander Lee Min-ho stepped forward, his tactical mind already working. "You've been watching the rebellion spread across Dra'kari space." "Indeed. Your defiance has awakened something we thought lost forever in this galaxy. Hope. Species that had accepted slavery for generations are now fighting for freedom. This is unexpected, but the Elder's expression grew darker, and Kim felt a chill run through the bridge. However, we bring grave news. The Dra'kari High Command has decided that enough is enough. They are preparing to deploy a weapon that will end all rebellions permanently. Hong leaned forward eagerly. What kind of weapon? They call it the Star Killer, the Elder said sadly. It is a device that can destroy entire solar systems by destabilizing stars. They plan to use it on rebellious worlds as an example to others. Your Earth, the Zenth mining colonies, the Halar shipyards, all will burn in artificial supernovas. The bridge fell into stunned silence. Kim felt like ice water had been poured into his veins. They had known the Dra'kari were cruel, but this level of destruction was beyond anything they had imagined. Billions of innocent lives would be wiped out just to send a message. How long do we have? Kim asked, dreading the answer. 14 of your days, the Elder replied. The weapon is nearly complete. Soon they will begin their campaign of terror. Medical Officer Dr. Kang Sabin spoke up from where he stood near the back of the bridge. Can you help us stop them? Your technology is obviously far beyond anything we've seen. The Elder was quiet for a long moment. We have spent centuries avoiding involvement in galactic affairs. We believed that interference only brought more suffering. But your species has shown us something we had forgotten. What's that? Kim asked. That sometimes standing up to evil is worth any cost. Your small ship has reminded us that neutrality in the face of genocide is itself a form of evil. Navigation Officer Xin Wu Jin checked his star charts. 14. Days isn't much time. Even if we knew where this weapon was located, we couldn't possibly— We know where it is, the Elder interrupted, and we know how to destroy it. But the task will require more than just knowledge. It will require the kind of courage that only your species seems to possess. Kim looked around at his exhausted crew. They had been fighting impossible odds for months, surviving on determination and luck. Now they were being asked to save not just the rebellious worlds, but potentially the entire galaxy from Dra'kari tyranny. What do you need us to do? He asked. The Elder's crystalline features seemed to glow brighter. We will share our knowledge and technology with you, but you must be the ones to act. You must be the spark that ignites the final battle for freedom. The weight of entire civilizations settled on Kim's shoulders. The Defiance had awakened something powerful in the galaxy, but now they had to finish what they started. In 14 days, they would either save countless worlds or watch them burn. The real war was about to begin. The final battle began above the Dra'kari homeworld, where their massive star-killer weapon hung in space like a dark moon. Captain Kim stood on the bridge of the Defiance, looking out at the most impossible sight he had ever witnessed. What started as one lonely human battleship had grown into a fleet that defied all logic. Zenth mining ships converted into fighters buzzed around the larger vessels like angry wasps. Their pilots had learned to fight using nothing but determination and makeshift weapons. Halar construction cruisers, built for shipyard work, now bristled with salvaged guns and armor plating, and floating among them like living jewels were the ancient Mortai vessels, their crystalline hulls shimmering with power that seemed to bend reality itself. All ships, this is Captain Kim Dae-ho of the human vessel Defiance, he broadcast across the mixed fleet of rebels. His voice carried across space to thousands of beings from dozens of different species, all united by one simple desire for freedom. Today we don't just fight for our own worlds. Today we end tyranny forever. The response came back in a dozen different languages, but the meaning was clear. They were ready to die for this cause. The Dra'kari defense fleet was massive, easily outnumbering the rebels 3-1. Their black warships formed perfect battle lines, just like they had been taught in their military academies. But they had never faced an enemy like this before. The rebel fleet didn't follow any known tactics. They fought with the desperation of beings who had nothing left to lose. Lieutenant Park So-young coordinated the chaotic battle from her station, her young face focused with intense concentration. Zenth Squadron Alpha is breaking through their— Left flank, she reported. Hala heavy cruisers are engaging their main battle line. Mortai vessels are doing something I don't understand, but it's working. The ancient aliens had weapons that seemed to ignore normal physics. Dra'kari ships simply stopped working when hit by Mortai energy beams. Their crews found unconscious but unharmed. It was as if the ancients refused to kill unnecessarily, even in the heat of battle. Commander Lee Min-ho ran through the corridors of the Defiance as the ship shook under enemy fire. Damage control teams rushed past him, sealing hull breaches and putting out fires. The old battleship had taken incredible punishment over the months of guerrilla warfare, but she still refused to give up. "Captain, we've lost main engines," Lee reported over his communicator, while sparks showered around him. "Emergency power only, but our weapons are still online." Kim gritted his teeth as another blast rocked the ship. Through the bridge windows, he could see the Star Killer weapon charging up for its first shot. If that thing fired, it would turn the nearest rebel world's sun into a supernova, killing billions of innocent people. "All ships concentrate fire on the weapon platform," he ordered. "We have to stop them from firing." The ragtag rebel fleet turned toward the massive weapon like a swarm of determined insects attacking a giant. Dra'kari fighters tried to stop them, but there were too many rebels coming from too many directions. The freed slaves fought with a fury that their former masters had never seen before. Weapons Officer Yang Su-min fired every remaining torpedo the Defiance had at the Star Killer's power core. Around them, hundreds of other ships did the same. The weapon platform shuddered under the combined assault, its dark metal hull cracking and bleeding atmosphere into space. Then the Mortai ships moved forward, their crystalline forms glowing, brighter than stars. Elder Mortai's voice came through the communication system. "Young fighters, stand clear, we will finish this." The ancient vessels released a wave of pure energy that washed over the Starkiller weapon like cleansing fire. The massive device simply came apart, its components dissolving harmlessly into space dust. The threat that could have destroyed entire solar systems was gone. At that moment, something broke in the Dra'kari fleet. Their perfect formations fell apart as ships began surrendering or fleeing. The destruction of their ultimate weapon had shattered their will to fight. Across the galaxy, Dra'kari garrisons on oppressed worlds began laying down their arms as news of the defeat spread. The empire that had ruled through fear for centuries crumbled in a single day. 6 months later, the battered Defiance limped into Earth's orbit, her hull scarred but her crew victorious. The planet below was green and blue again, rebuilt by human survivors who had returned from their exile among the stars. Captain Kim stepped onto the bridge of the new space station orbiting Earth. Admiral Song waited for him there, tears streaming down her weathered face. She had been one of the evacuation fleet commanders who escaped during Earth's darkest hour. "Welcome home, Captain Kim," she said, her voice breaking with emotion. "The galaxy will never be the same because of what you and your crew accomplished." Through the station's large windows, Kim watched an incredible sight. Ships from a dozen different species worked together in Earth's orbit, building new stations and sharing technology. Former enemies had become allies, former slaves had become partners. The Zenth brought their mining expertise, the Hala shared their construction skills, and the Mortai offered knowledge that would advance civilization by centuries. "One ship," Kim whispered to himself, remembering Lieutenant Park's amazed words from months ago. One human battleship had faced an entire empire and won, not through superior firepower, but through the simple refusal to give up. The Defiance sat in space dock nearby, finally getting the repairs she had earned through months of impossible battles. Her crew was scattered across the growing fleet, teaching other species the tactics that had brought down the mighty Dra'kari Empire. Kim smiled as he watched a group of young Zenth pilots learning from human instructors. The galaxy had awakened from centuries of oppression, and the future looked brighter than anyone had dared to hope. Everything had changed, and it all started with 800 humans who refused to surrender. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.